The new year comes with a new set of rules now in effect, and some of the ones getting the most attention. California's minimum wage is now $16 an hour, with fast food workers making at least $20 an hour starting in April. Speeding cameras are getting installed in Glendale, Long Beach, and Los Angeles, and employers can't fire people for using marijuana outside of work. But there are plenty of other laws making changes to the healthcare system in the state, plus protections for consumers. Joining us to discuss, former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani. Thanks for joining us today. And California is now the first state to offer undocumented migrants Medi-Cal. How's that going to work?
John, new year, new laws, and that's the law that is getting the most attention throughout the country. California being the very first state in the country to provide health insurance regardless of age, regardless of immigration status. So that's something that's going to affect a lot of Californians, provide a lot more benefits, but obviously immigration is a really hot button issue right now. So a lot of other states are taking note.
Here's what I'm curious about with that specific law. Medi-Cal is partially funded with federal dollars. Is it legal for California to use federal dollars to support illegal immigration?
Well, I think this is something that is going to come to a head. We're seeing it right now in Texas, where Senate Bill 4 the state is trying to enforce federal immigration laws. And whenever there's a conflict between state and federal laws, usually under the supremacy clause, federal law controlled. Now, I don't think the Biden administration is going to be taking action against California, but if a Republican wins in 2024, that may change with respect to federal funds for these types of programs.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. The California health providers are now being protected for providing abortion or gender-affirming care to patients in other states. Will those legal protections hold up in court if, say, Texas decides to sue?
I think so. And California enacted a series of laws in response to the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. The first being protecting California doctors and pharmacists who mail abortion pills out of state. They can't be sued or prosecuted. And in addition, California is prohibiting out-of-state bounty hunters from coming into California and arresting doctors who may perform abortions in violations of other states' abortion laws. And in addition, tech companies in California, including social media companies, they can't comply with out-of-state subpoenas trying to identify who's getting an abortion.
Now, the California Consumer Privacy Act was passed in 2020, but it takes effect in March this year. How can people use that to protect their data?
Well, that's a big one. There's a few consumer privacy laws that are coming into effect this year. And there's some other consumer protection laws that are big. There's going to be one that makes websites provide fees upfront. No more hidden fees. So when you're buying a concert ticket, booking a hotel, you don't get to that last page and see these additional fees. They have to be provided upfront. And that's a law that takes effect later this year in July. And in addition, there's another law that's going to protect a lot of consumers, and that's when you call 911 and an ambulance shows up, you don't know if that ambulance is going to be in-network, out-of-network. A lot of folks have been hit with a lot of fees because they call an out-of-network ambulance. So now medical service companies, they have to provide in-network rates if you have private health insurance. And if you don't, they have to provide Medi-Cal and Medicare rates. So there's going to be no sticker shock just because you call 911.
There are some new protections for renters, too. What are we dealing with?
Good news for renters. Landlords can now charge just 1 month of security deposit up front. And previously, they could charge 2 months if the unit was unfurnished, or even up to 3 months if the unit was furnished. And so this is something that's going to affect renters throughout the state, provide a benefit, make it easier to get into a rental. But there's also a potential benefit for landlords. Now they can separate and either build or sell an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, and sell that separately as a condo. Lawmakers think that that's something that's going to help the state's housing crisis.
And there are also some policies to help consumers. Tell us about the new laws on false advertising and also right to repair.
So false advertising, the Attorney General is going to go after companies that engage in deceptive advertising tactics and set up a fund to help individuals that may be affected. So that's something that the AG is going to go after aggressively and hopefully help consumers. And the right to repair law allows individuals who buy something that costs $50 or more to actually be able to have access to the parts and information to repair the item themselves. without having to go to the company and pay significant fees.
You know, Apple's always the company that comes up with that. And one of their arguments in the past was always that it's a security issue. You start giving people the right to repair these things, they might be able to tamper with the thumbprint sensor or stuff like that. What do you think of that argument?
Well, definitely, there's companies that make a lot of money making these repairs. So there's certainly some resistance, both with respect to these types of laws. And, you know, we talked about the minimum wage and other laws that some companies really try to oppose, but the legislature and Governor Newsom pushed them through to help both consumers and workers.
Okay, Neama Rahmani, a lot to talk about, a lot of new laws to think about, too. Thanks for joining us and explaining some of them for us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, John.